Hey vinyl community, welcome back to a new episode of RB's Vinyl Corner. Recorded here live in the beautiful city of Eindhoven. As you can hear on the background, it's raining. It's midsummer, but it's been raining already for the whole week, which is a typical Holland tradition. But hey, other than that, I'm good. It's my day off from work today, and I'm enjoying staying inside, taking some time to record a video for you. In the previous video, I showed you this beautiful record store day release of an Elvis Presley record, which was called The King in the Ring. It's here, this one. And I showed you this, and this was actually released to commemorate on the 50th anniversary of the Elvis, the comeback special from 1968. Last year, 2019, there was another celebration. It was the celebration of the 50th anniversary of Elvis actually getting back into the studio recording new songs, which would release the two legendary 1969 records from Elvis in Memphis and Elvis back in Memphis. And also last year, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of Elvis Presley actually returning on stage, performing live again with his great Las Vegas engagement. And that's something I'm going to talk about in the next video, where I'm going to show you some fantastic records that commemorated those 50th anniversary of the Elvis back on stage things. But today I want to focus on this 1969 studio sessions that were collected, or some highlights of that were collected on the Record Store Day release of last year, which is called Elvis at American Sound 1969 Highlights, which is this one. And I want to just talk a little bit about this, because from Elvis in Memphis, in my opinion, one of the essential Elvis Presley records you should have in your collection. And I don't know if some of you have seen some of my older videos, but if you scroll back on my page, there is a video which is called The 5 Essential Elvis Presley Records. And I talked about what I consider to be the 5 albums you must own in your record collection, but also when you want to introduce Elvis Presley to someone else who has never heard his stuff before, or only knows the hits, you know, the ones that you always hear on the radio, Suspicious Minds, or Lost at the Night, Now or Never, Jailhouse Rock. If you want to introduce someone to Elvis Presley music, there are 5 essential albums you should give them or advise them to listen to. And in my opinion, and that opinion never changed, it's still, you know, the same opinion I have today, is the 1956 album Elvis Presley, which is a titleless debut album. The 1960 album Elvis is Back, the first one he recorded when he came back from the army. Then the 1969 album from Elvis in Memphis, stuff of that we're going to talk about today. Then the 1970 That's the Way It Is, and the 1977 Moody Blue. Those 5 albums, in my opinion, are the essential. And I did pick those 5 albums with a reason, because not only do they show you the diversity of Elvis Presley, it also shows you his progression in music making throughout the years, with some significant changes in direction with each album that I put in that 5 essentials. The 1956 album basically really represents Elvis Presley in the 50s. It was his first album, his first studio album, and also, you know, although I could have picked like an album like Golden Records 1 and 2, which also represents the 50s, my rule with those 5 essentials was none compilations, but studio albums. Why? Because compilations focus on hits only. Studio albums show you and let you hear some songs that you will never hear on the radio. And within those songs, other than the hits, are really truly hidden gems that you would otherwise never hear. So therefore, if I would advise someone to start listening Elvis Presley music, I will also always give them those 5 studio albums, because that will give them a very broad perspective of the things he did during his lifetime. So the 1956 album shows Elvis Presley with raw energy in his beginnings, with a lot of excitement, making rock and roll music. And this first album, which is a legendary album, it's a classic album, really shows you why he was called the king of rock and roll. And it really represents everything he basically did throughout the 50s. Then the second album, which is Elvis Is Back, when he came back, saw a very big change in his music making, in the song choice, in the way he sang. Maybe I should not use the word change, but he really progressed into a very different direction. While the 50s were really raw, unpolished rock and roll music, like in its most purest form, this 1960 album, Elvis Is Back, showed a much matured Elvis Presley. He got a very much warmer voice, a much more polished voice, and he also came up with a much more polished sound. All of a sudden, not only appealing to very young girls and boys that want to rebel against society, but actually also reaching out to more adult music listeners. So from 1960 on until 1963, when he would record other albums like Something for Everybody, Potluck, His Hand in Mine, it was a complete different direction. More ballads, more polished, less raw. So this 1960 album really represents that. This 1969 album from Elvis in Memphis is another marker in his life that had a big change in his direction. There was no rock anymore. There was no raw rock and roll. It was again a more matured Elvis Presley. His voice changed, became warmer, became richer, and his songs choice really changed. More soul, more pop, more soul, more a really different direction. And it was his comeback. And all between the last studio albums from the early 60s till this one, the only thing he was doing was recording soundtracks, which was a complete, well, let's not go into those soundtracks. There are some hidden gems in there, but overall speaking, those soundtracks were not really creative highlights in his career, right? I think you will agree on that. So again, then he went back on stage and performing live. So the 1970 album, That's the Way It Is, was another change in direction. He went going on into the 70s, and he started losing this raw edge, this sharp edge, this rock and roll attitude, and it became more like a performer for a much more mature audience also. Went more into country music and ballads, and it's a complete different direction again. So that was the start of the 70s. And the 1977 Moody Blue album, again, it's not really a change in direction, but that was simply the final album he recorded, which still, if you compare that to That's the Way It Is, his voice, he might have had much more reach and much more power. The raw edge in his voice was completely gone by then. So those 5 albums really shows this broad perspective of Elvis Presley, the musician, throughout his life. Now, I'm sorry that I'm rambling on and on and on, but this is just the way I think. So this fantastic 2 albums from 1969, which is From Elvis in Memphis and Elvis Back in Memphis, were really milestones in his career, and I think amongst the most favorites of every Elvis fan around on the globe. Now, let's go back to this one. This is the album, it's called American Studio 1969 Highlights. Is a compilation album, it's a double album that has highlighted some of the studio outtakes that would become those 2 legendary albums. And in last year, the F2D label, Follow the Dream label, which is the collector's label from RCA, they came up with a box set of 5 CDs that had almost all the outtakes from all the songs that came off from that session. And it's a very long sit if you want to listen to that. And for me personally, although it's a fantastic release and it has some fantastic moments, to listen to one and the same song over and over again in diverse takes can be a little bit tiresome. So what they did with the album release on vinyl is they just took one of every song, they just took 1 or 2 takes and put them together here. So it's actually a much easier listen to this. And I really dig this. It's really wonderful. Now, for me, listening to this stuff and how these songs come to life is a very, very, very interesting experience. And also, I gotta tell you that listening to these songs unedited, without the background vocal accompaniments of the Sweet Inspirations, without the trumpets and all the strings and all that stuff, but you strip down all the way back to basics, like naked, is so refreshing to listen to. Just listen, for example, to Take One, which is included on this album, of In the Ghetto. What a wonderful experience. No backing vocals, instrumentals to a minimum, and just this rich, beautiful voice of Elvis gives you a complete different experience of those songs. Really, really refreshing. And that's the thing. That's what I think is the great thing about this wonderful album. So it's a double album, American Sound Studios, and just look at the cover. It's actually beautiful and pretty original. Two photographs from Elvis with the people that were involved recording that album, and RCA logo, Victor, and it's really cool actually if you think about it. In 2019, 2020, we still have these wonderful releases of Elvis, and we can still look forward to wonderful releases of Elvis. Even so many years after his death, he's still very alive. So on the backside, we have all the song listings. And so those are all wonderful songs. Each and every song you already know, but hearing them in these different takes is a real great experience. Yes, all these songs were already released before, and on the inside of the gatefold cover, here is the whole track listing, and they also mention where these takes or these versions of the songs were released before, because they took them from different releases, from FTD releases, but also from regular RCA releases. The inside cover shows a lot of memorabilia taken from all kinds of releases from 1969, advertisement, promotional pictures, and basically this is everything you get here with this album as far as extra information goes. There's nothing inside, no inserts with liner notes and all that stuff, which is actually a pity, because they should have, you could have put in a booklet with some extra additional information. But on the other hand, if you get the CD from FTD, then you also have that information, because that one actually has the booklet. Yeah, so this one, I'll put it here for a moment. It came, both LPs were household in this white, simple inserts or inner sleeves. And the thing that I think is a pity is there's no plastic inside. For example, what the music on vinyl label does in such a beautiful way is putting them in these polybag sleeves, which really protect the albums. But other than that, okay. So it has the original RCA label, orange label. I do have the impression that this is a little lighter of color than we usually get from RCA. But other than that, I don't know about you, but every time when I take out an album that has this beautiful orange label, it gives me a feeling of nostalgia all the time. Every time again when I take this out, one of the albums, and it has this, because I literally grew up with Elvis Presley records, and in my youth, listening to these records from my father, because obviously it was my father's collection. And then these days I take this out, it's always like a flashback or a trip back in time down memory lane. Pretty cool. So this is American Sound Studios. I really love this one. It's a fantastic album. It's the outtakes from the stuff that is the base of some of his most essential work, and it's just a beautiful album. So if you don't have this, I think it's still available and still around. I think it's not really hard to get it, but this will become a collector's item in time because again, it was a special record store day release. I don't think they're going to repress it. So if you happily think about getting this, get it now while you still can get it for a acceptable price. I think it goes for about like maybe $20, $20 to $25, or in Europe around 25 euros. That's what you should pay for it right now. But in time, again, like a lot of these releases that come out recently, they will become collector's item and will become a little bit more expensive. So yeah, this is Elvis at American Sound Studios. Beautiful stuff. And also the album came with a download voucher where you can download MP3 version of this album. And I'm not gonna download this thing because I'm only listening to the vinyl. I can listen to other channels on CD. So as part of this video, I just want to give this away. And it's first come, first served base. So if you already have this album, then leave this to someone else to download, okay? So I'm gonna put it here so you can see it. I don't know if you can see it. There you go. So for the one who's downloading this, enjoy the album. Maybe you like it so much that you will also buy the vinyl record. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment about what you think about this. And also, if you didn't do already, please subscribe to my channel and let's make this channel grow bigger again. In the next video, we're going to talk about some of Elvis Presley's live in 1969 engagements. Until then, ciao.